Hey everyone, it's PELVIS, 4th of April, 2016, and this video is dedicated to all of those people who ask me for advice on handstands and arm balances, and the number one thing I say is do yoga practice, but not all yoga practice is made the same. The Ashtanga primary series is really the only reason that I'm any good at handstands, if I were to consider myself good at handstands. And so here's a video that really cuts it up and compresses it so it keeps your attention. It's very short, and enjoy. The first thing I need to say is this is how I practice Ashtanga primary series. I only do 3 sun salutation A and 3 sun salutation B. This is how I learned it from Clifford Sweet. I don't do full vinyasa, which is basically you come back to standing after each seated pose. If I were to do that, that would add about 30 more jump forwards and jump backs. And it adds a little bit of time, definitely a bigger strength component to it. I also skip a couple of vinyasa. It's like I said, this is just how I practice. I don't feel the need to do the vinyasa between certain seated poses that are very similar to each other, because the vinyasa is really just to clear your energy. You sit in a pose that's asymmetric for a few breaths, and the lines of fascia in your body, the muscles and fascia, they stretch on one side, and so you could go right into the other side, but you have a muscle compensation pattern. Everybody does. And so it'll still end up, you'll be left asymmetric a little bit. And the vinyasa, jumping back, doing a upward facing dog, downward facing dog, jumping back through, helps distribute that asymmetry throughout your body. You might notice the redundancy of the jump backs and jump forwards as the video progresses. And if you practice Ashtanga, especially regularly, you may, like me, develop achy wrists, achy elbows, shoulders, maybe even achy hips. And so my workshops particularly focus on the therapeutics, the need for balance in the muscles, especially in the shoulder girdle, and alignment in the wrists and shoulders, and also some core strengthening and activation techniques, because we may end up eventually compensating for weaker structural muscles with the grosser superficial muscles, and this will lead to imbalance in the hips and pelvis and some unnecessary suffering. Develop some aches and then come see me. And just with my limited experience, and I'm blessed with some teachers like Doug Swenson and Bryce Delbridge who have showed me techniques for resolving those aches, and now I practice with total comfort. You might also notice I double up on a couple poses like Bhujapadasana. I entered it once from a handstand and then another time just to show how you enter it from just jumping forward into it. Also notice the facial expression and the breath during jump forward and jump backs. It's not perfect. I've only been practicing for 5 years compared to some people who have practiced for 50 years. But observe if you're clenching your face, if you're biting your lip, if you have a scowl in your eyebrows, and if your breathing seems stressed or effortful. Understand I also sped the video times 2, so my breathing is half the speed that you hear in the video, and so it's a little less intense. But it's still comfortable and deep. And I use the breath, just like when you're lifting, like a power lifter or bodybuilder, you use the breath to push the weight. Of course I use muscles, but you'd be surprised how much propulsion you can get from a strong diaphragm rather than strong arms and shoulders.